Hello, my name is Sonya Madison, and welcome to Law Unfiltered, where we talk about current events and some of the legal implications. Recently, the United States Supreme Court decided whether or not someone who has been convicted of a crime but then subsequently was either had their conviction vacated or their conviction was overturned, whether or not that person can get the court costs that they expensed before as well as subsequent to the trial. And so in this particular case, we had two petitioners, and these are, again, people who were convicted, but then their convictions were either reversed or vacated. One was convicted for sexual and physical abuse on her children, and the other person was convicted of attempting to patronize a prostitute child, as well as attempting third-degree sexual assault by force. So once their convictions were either overturned or reversed or vacated, they went back to the state of Colorado and said, hey, we want the money that we paid, the court costs that we paid, returned to us since we have been deemed innocent, right? Well, the state said, no, the money belongs to us. It was given to us, and we're not going to return it to you unless you can prove with clear and convincing evidence that you are in fact innocent. And they also made some kind of assertion that, listen, you didn't go through the correct channels as well as to get the money, but their main argument is you're going to have to prove through clear and convincing evidence that you're innocent. Well, of course, they felt like, well, that's not fair, that we were clearly had our convictions overturned, it would be enough to get our money back. And so then what they decided to do was sue. And how we come to the Supreme Court, because usually Supreme Court isn't really trying to review state laws unless there is some kind of constitutional element to it. So how it came to the Supreme Court is they wanted to review whether or not the requirement that people who had their convictions either reversed or overturned were still presumed innocent, or did it violate due process, the 14th Amendment, with the fact that you're still going to hold their money or you're not going to refund the money that they had to relinquish in order to either show their innocence or to go through the whole beyond reasonable doubt standard. So what the Supreme Court stated was it does violate the Constitution. It is unconstitutional not to refund their money. The money should belong to them because we are presumed innocent until proven guilty, and this proof has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. We should be required to prove our innocence, and therefore we are going to require you to give the money back to them. Well, this could have been a unanimous decision because just about all the justices were on board, except one justice, and it's the one justice that I'm typically talking about on these opinions, and that is Justice Thomas. And what he essentially said was, first of all, it shouldn't even matter whether or not this is a 14th Amendment issue, because the issue is who holds the money, who has the right to the money. And his argument was the minute they relinquish the money to the state, the money belonged to the state, and the state should be able to exercise or at least determine under what circumstances they will return the money back to you. And since they did that by making him or making both of them prove their innocence, then we shouldn't be questioning whether or not that is a violation of the Constitution. Now, I tend to, again, go along with the majority here because I do think it is important in this country that we do have a presumption of innocence. And so if that presumption is there, but again, if the state proves beyond a reasonable doubt of a guilty verdict, then yeah, we'll give you the guilty verdict if that's proven. But if we get those convictions overturned, then that means we're back to where we started. And that should be the presumption of innocence. Another thing that the majority also harped on is, while the Constitution is there, and if the state does something to violate the Constitution, that is something that they'll review, but there is an exception to everything. And the exception when it comes to constitutional violations is there a state or government compelling interest that should override someone's constitutional rights? And so in this particular case, they looked at, well, is there a compelling interest for the state to have this money? And they decided, well, the money shouldn't belong to you because, again, there was this presumption of innocence, but they also decided, what harm is it that you return the money? I mean, given that in this particular situations, you have petitioners that did, in fact, go to jail for a significant period of time before they had their convictions overturned, and the fact that if they never were convicted or never had to go through this trial, you would have never had the money. So they argued that because there was no compelling interest for you to keep the money, then that's another notch or another check mark to return it back to the petitioners. So what do you guys think? Do you think the majority made the correct decision here, or do you align along with Justice Thomas in that, well, it belongs to the state. Once you hand it over to the state then determines how they will manage it accordingly? Let me know what you think, and thanks so much for tuning in. Catch you next time on Law Unfiltered.